The haunted highway. It was nearly midnight when Daniel turned onto the old highway, cutting through Blackwood Forest. The usual route home was blocked due to an accident, and his GPS suggested this shortcut. He had taken it once before, years ago, but something about it unsettled him even then. Now, under the glow of a blood-red moon, the road seemed darker than he remembered, the trees taller, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. His phone lost signal almost immediately. The GPS screen rerouting repeatedly before freezing on a single message, unknown road. Daniel gripped the wheel tighter. He had 2 hours to go before reaching home, and the empty road stretched endlessly before him. The only sound was the steady hum of the engine and the rhythmic thudding of his tires against the cracked pavement. Then, the fog rolled in. It was sudden, thick, ghostly, swallowing the trees and reducing his visibility to almost nothing. His headlights barely cut through it, illuminating only a few feet ahead. Daniel slowed down, heart pounding. That's when he saw it. A figure stood at the edge of the road, just within the mist. It was a woman, tall, impossibly thin, wearing a tattered white dress that clung to her skeletal frame. Her long black hair covered most of her face, but what little skin was visible looked wrong to pale, almost gray. Daniel's foot hovered over the brake, but as he approached, the woman took a step forward. Her head jerked unnaturally, her body twitching like a glitching video. A guttural whisper filled the air, though he couldn't understand the words. His instincts screamed at him to drive, so he did. He pressed the gas pedal, swerving around her. But just as he passed, a sharp thud echoed through the car. His breath caught in his throat. Had he hit her? His hands trembled on the wheel. He glanced in the rearview mirror, nothing but the thick, swirling fog. The road was empty. But as he exhaled in relief, something moved in the mirror. His back seat was no longer empty. A pale, rotting hand gripped the headrest behind him. Long, jagged nails scraped against the leather. Slowly, a face emerged from the darkness, sunken eyes. A gaping mouth stretched into a silent scream. The woman was inside his car. Daniel's scream caught in his throat as his vision blurred. The car swerved violently, nearly veering off the road. He slammed the brakes, but the car kept moving faster now, as if something else had taken control. The radio crackled to life, whispering in a language he didn't understand. The fog grew thicker, suffocating. Shadows moved within it, dozens of them, lining the roadside, watching him. Their faces were blurred, eyeless, their mouths twisted into hollow O's. Then a voice whispered directly in his ear, "You never should have come back." Daniel turned his head, but there was no one there. The car shuddered, headlights flickering. The road beneath him stretched endlessly, looping back on itself. The same twisted trees, the same eerie fog, the same figures watching. He was trapped. His heart pounded as he checked his fuel gauge, almost empty. He had to escape. But the road had other plans. The woman in white appeared ahead again, standing in the middle of the road. This time, her face was fully visible in an empty void where her eyes should be, her mouth hanging open in a silent, endless scream. Her arms stretched unnaturally long, fingers clawing at the air. Daniel yanked the wheel. The car spun out of control. The last thing he saw before everything went black was her face, pressed against his window, whispering his name. When Daniel woke up, his car was parked on the side of the highway. The sun was rising. His phone had service again. The GPS showed his home was only a few miles away. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? Shaking, he started the car and pulled onto the road. As he drove, he glanced in the mirror. His back seat was empty, But deep in the trees, watching from the shadows, the woman in white still stood, waiting. And as Daniel drove away, the whisper returned. See you soon. The Blood Forest. It was supposed to be a shortcut. Nathan had been driving for hours, the highway stretching endlessly before him. His GPS glitched, forcing him to take an unfamiliar route through Blackwood Forest. The trees on either side loomed like ancient sentinels, their twisted branches clawing at the night sky. As he drove deeper into the woods, the road narrowed. The air grew colder. His radio crackled with static before a faint whisper came through. Turn back. Nathan frowned, reaching for the dial, but the whispering only grew louder. The words slithered through the speakers, crawling under his skin. He's watching. The headlights flickered. Then, he saw something up ahead, a man standing in the middle of the road. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle. His mouth stretched into a frozen scream. Blood dripped from his throat, pooling onto the pavement. Nathan slammed the brakes, heart pounding. But when he blinked, the figure was gone. The only sound was his own ragged breathing. Something moved in the trees. A shadow, watching, waiting. Nathan swallowed hard and pressed the gas pedal, eager to get the hell out of there. But no matter how far he drove, the road never ended. His GPS was useless now, the screen filled with nothing but static. Then, the car lurched as if something heavy had landed on the roof. His pulse spiked. He glanced at the rearview mirror. A shape crouched on top of the car, long arms, sharp fingers dragging across the metal, leaving deep, jagged scratches. Its face was wrong, stretched too thin, mouth split open in a grotesque grin, and it was looking right at him. Nathan's breath caught. His hands clenched the wheel. Then, the creature slammed its fists down. The windshield cracked. Nathan floored it. The thing on the roof howled, a bone-chilling sound that didn't belong to anything human. The car swerved wildly as he fought to stay on the road. Then bang! The windshield shattered. Something slithered into the car. Rotting fingers wrapped around his throat. A voice, cold as death, whispered in his ear. Run! Nathan screamed, yanking the wheel. The car veered off the road, crashing into the trees. The impact sent him flying forward. Darkness swallowed him whole. When he woke up, the forest was silent. His car was totaled, smoke curling from the hood. The windshield was gone. Blood dripped from his forehead. Then, he heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Something was hunting him. Nathan scrambled out of the car, heart hammering. He staggered forward, searching for any sign of a road, a way out. But the trees had closed in around him, their gnarled roots twisting like skeletal fingers. The whisper returned. He's here. A shadow moved between the trees. Then, another, and another. Nathan turned, breath hitching. Dozens of figures emerged from the darkness, pale, faceless, their hollow eyes locked onto him. Behind them, something bigger lurked. A towering figure with a stitched-together face, wearing a mask of human skin. A rusted blade in one hand. In the other, Nathan's own severed reflection, staring back at him through a broken shard of glass. The thing smiled. Then it ran straight for him. Nathan bolted, his screams lost in the night as the hunt began. But no one ever escaped the Blood Forest, and no one ever would.